It's time to get inside the Giants Huddle.
Let's go!
On Giants.com.
I like it.
And the Giants mobile app.
Boom, give me some juice.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's roll.
We're back with another Giants Huddle podcast from the Combine in Indianapolis. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino, joined by Cynthia Frelund,
Hi.
who is the analytics queen. Is that your official title for NFL Network? Okay.
Yeah, well, princess. I'm not quite old enough to be the queen yet.
Okay. I like it. Analytics princess. For the NFL Network, she'll be part of NFL Network's coverage of the Combine all weekend long. Make sure you go check that out. And, of course, Giants Huddle podcast is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Football Giants. All right, Cynthia, for you, a numbers person,
Yep.
what's the most important thing that happens in Indianapolis for you as you do your own version of draft evaluation of these players?
Well, from like a 30,000-foot view, it's that the stuff that I've been tracking from their games matches up with what we see them do here. So
Expectations, right?
Expectations, like nothing needs to be perfect. There is actually very little return on running like a sub-4.3 40. But if you are a guy who looked fast when you were running in college and you run slow here, it's like, wait, what, did I miss something? Or if you're a guy who didn't look so fast, because sometimes it's a function of what I was asked to do in college that puts my, like JJ McCarthy's a good example of that. Like Michigan didn't ask him to do like a lot of pro stuff, right? And then I asked one of their staff members, like, Michigan, I'm from Michigan, so I know it. And they're like, we didn't need him to. We needed to win games.
Right.
You're like, got it. So a lot of life is like, what were you asked to do and how well did you do it? So as long as everything sort of matches, and then you can start refining your measurements and judgments of what you saw. But if something doesn't check out, it's like a red flag, like, oh, no, I must have missed something. So it's a little bit more of like a verification process than anything else.
Let me follow up on that, because now we get all these GPS times from college, right? Do you get your hands on those too or no?
I do. Can we just pick one GPS provider? It drives me crazy. Like,
well, that was actually going to be my question.
Provider. They're all, like, you just got to look at relative values, right? So, like, this guy's
in your
faster.
opinion, do they match up, or are there differences? Oh, that's a problem.
Oh boy.
And
Wait, am I supposed to say yes?
No,
yes,
absolutely not.
They all match up perfectly. There's nothing wrong with them.
And pretty much every conference has a difference provider, correct?
Right. So you just look at like it's not like they're so off that like a guy who looks slow in the ACC is a guy who is fast in the SEC. Like they're just like, but you can't line them up in order and be like, this guy's gonna run fast. Like.
But that's part of the comparison process, right? Which is my question. You look at the GPS on field numbers. How often for you do those match up to the 40 stuff, and how often are they different?
The truth is you don't really reach top. Like, I use computer vision because I'm like, I don't trust anyone else. I have trust issues. We're good. But the computer vision, to me, I measure everything with the same stick, which means it's equally wrong. So I can't tell you I wouldn't stand by, he's running 21.47 miles per hour. What I would say is, okay, this guy says 21.47, and this guy says 20.47.
So he's faster than that guy.
So he's faster than that guy.
Right.
Let's put them in order. So it's less about like the explicit and more about the like how you rank and then take those on-field numbers. And the problem is your pads have a weight to them. Maybe you're running a post, or maybe you're running a go, or maybe you're running a slant. Like, so there's just a lot of variables that go on. And then, by the way, there's like now weird defenses. Like, go watch Texas's defense. They play a 3-3-5, which means there's a lot more space in the middle of the field, which means now you're running these intermediate routes that before wouldn't have been your faster routes, but now they're suddenly really fast. Okay. So the point is like you have to kind of contextuate based on the route tree and based on what defense they were faced.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New you moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
Cynthia, how many of the combine numbers are actually relevant to your data equations? Because we know the different positions have different relevance to different numbers. So do you actually take some of them and say, these don't fit into what I'm trying to do anyway?
Yeah. So most of it is a threshold. Like as long as they fall between this range, you're fine. So it's like, do you check the box, yes or no? But I spent a lot of time. So my very first combine, a guy named Russ Grimm, who's like a legendary offensive lineman, he told me that there was nothing I could ever do that would be of use to him. Nothing. And so I was like,
challenge Cynthia Freelund. That's a mistake.
But
he was a hog now. You know that.
Oh, I love him. I know. I get it. But like, he's a good person. We'll leave his hogness out of this. As personhood, he didn't get to choose that, right? They chose him. But he told me there was nothing I could ever do. And I'm like, well, what would you like to know? He's like, I want to know who's going to be a waist bender, which just means unfavorable leverage. Who can hold their leverage the longest? So I spent my entire master's thesis. This is so boring and nerdy, but I spent my entire master's thesis and paid a lot of money to measure giant men's bums.
You're kidding me.
And how much they bend at the
Bums,
waist?
knees, ankles, the flexion in your lower spine. Like I
Wow.
worked with like a doctor to understand like how to stand lower than some, like, you know, the kinesiologist will tell
Okay.
you how that, like, sports science people will tell
Yeah.
you, like, you have to have this, like, flexion, your spine. You have to twerk, basically. You have to be able to twerk. So, you know, you have this ability to take all of that together, and actually it maps and correlates very strongly to if a O lineman keeps their butt down for the first 10 split of their 40.
Wow.
All of that.
Wow.
Do you know how much money I spent to be able to give you that one sentence? Still paying for that.
But it has
Yeah.
proven useful.
Yeah, and Russ likes it.
There you go.
So then so let's look at the offensive linemen then.
Yep.
What are you keeping an eye on this weekend when it comes to the big fellas? Because, you know, most people tune out after the fast guys and the wide receivers, but Sunday's a big day.
Sunday's a
Those
big
are the
day.
big boys. The Giants always looking for offensive linemen.
Absolutely.
So what do you look for?
This is a
for
strong
things
class.
like balance. And, you know,
Yeah.
for example, Evan Neal, who the Giants drafted a couple years ago, he's had some issues with balance with the
Mm-hmm.
Giants, for example. What are things you look for to try to predict that sort of stuff?
On all of the drills, where does your, so I can map it. It kind of looks like, you know, the yellow line that you have for the first down marker? Well, I could do like circles and things around the video. So when you do that, it's like, where's your center of gravity? If you can keep your center of gravity, 3-cone drill, like all of the different sort of like lateral movements, the first 10 split of the 40, of course, but it's like, can you keep your balance? That's very helpful. It's also footwork relative to that. How many times you pick, it's so nerdy, pick up your feet as you're going side to side. It's actually, you only really see it with your eyes if it's really slow, but the really fast ones, like, it's crazy when you watch it with the computer vision.
Is that good?
It's
Wow.
It's better with fast.
You want faster feet.
Faster feet.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
But you want to be able. But when they're fast, you have to keep them wide, because it keeps your center of gravity more balanced.
Because otherwise you can
They be tippy.
side to
yeah.
side, right?
Yeah. You don't want to be like that, like thing
Yeah.
that you punch and it comes back. You know. But
Weeble
it's-
wobbles, I think you're
Weeble-
looking for. Yeah,
Yeah. Weeble wobbles. Yeah.
Except they don't fall
They wanna
down.
be-
The NFL players do fall down, which is a problem.
Exactly. So it's like, can you keep your wide stance with your feet really, really fast?
Right.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
All right, I want to ask you about separation, which Brian
Yeah.
Dable talks about all the time.
Love it.
And says, I've got to get separation out of my wide receivers. Where do you measure that separation? Is it right off the line? Is it 10 yards downfield? Or is it on the deep vertical shots where you can see it the most?
I actually think the most predictive way to look at, like, if you were to take a snapshot and be like, which is most likely to be completed, you got to look at it when it leaves the quarterback's hands.
Okay.
Like, a lot of that, though, also has to do with, like, the more precise route runners will end up where they're supposed to be more often, obviously. But the quarterback can only put enough juice on the ball for what he sees. And if he sees you running into space or if he sees you covered, it just logically speaking, right? So that's the most predictive. Of course, deeper routes, you're going to have more separation. But it's more about how much time goes by, because it's like time and separation, right? Like, sometimes you get more, sometimes you get less. And you got to figure out how to optimize for where you can catch it.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Final question. Are you able to start getting metrics on how quickly guys can come out of their routes at the top of their route? Whether
Yeah.
it's in, out, in, cut, just slant.
Yep.
Are you guys
Yep.
able to get measurements on how quickly those guys can change directions and stuff
Not only
like
can
that?
we do that, we can measure the angle that their hips are facing at the time, any time in the route too.
And that kind of determines how deceptive you could be as a receiver?
If I'm running and I need a back shoulder throw, that's going to be have a different speed. It's going to have a different ability to turn. I can't turn right in the scenario. People can't see it or whatever. Like, you know, can you turn right? Can you turn left?
Yeah.
It's going to change that dynamic, and it's going to figure out, like, that's also your center of gravity that helps predict for yak.
So you can measure hip looseness. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How about that? Well,
It's
we could do
also
this forever. This
you
is
could.
awesome.
I know, it's so much fun.
I
You
love
could even
this.
do it for defensive players too, and that's
Corners, it's big, right?
safeties too. It's like,
Yeah.
can you maintain your speed with your hips in every direction? You should be a safety. Like, maybe they don't get paid as much, but, like, I'm telling you, like, it's crazy. Like, maybe currently they don't get paid as much, but it's super valuable given the way that now, like, offenses are starting to play. Like the way we'll see more safeties get paid more.
Is there a metric for how much sleep you need this week?
0. No. It's definitely a not like there's a lot of, like I said, I'll go home and code and then like fall asleep and we're good. But yeah, I love it. It's my favorite.
We have to do a deep dive later on
Anytime.
and talk more about this.
Oh my
Cynthia,
God,
this
love
is
it.
awesome. Appreciate
Great
it.
to see you,
Cynthia
Cynthia.
Frelund,
No,
Giants
yeah.
Huddle Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time, everybody.